So formally warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Ahmedabad Management Association. Today we have book launch and panel discussion on CEO, chess master or a gardener. So before we start the book launch and panel discussion, I have a pleasure and privilege on behalf of IIMA to introduce all the speaker on the dais. So first I will start with Dr. TV Rao. Everybody knows him. Right, morning we had a HR conference. So TV Rao is a chairman of TV Rao Learning System, Ahmedabad. Everybody knows that he was part of IIM Ahmedabad for 20 years. So it's a long list, Dr. Rao, but I will cut short and move faster. Okay, but first I start welcoming Dr. TV Rao on behalf of IIMA with a flower. Warm welcome again. Dr. Anil Khandelwal, brief introduction. It's a long.
Seems to have been taken because I have taken in earlier.
Sir, it is our customary on behalf of AMA, so it's a process driven. You know, morning we were talking about, so it's a process, okay. So we'll just go fast on the introduction. Dr. Anil Khandelwal is celebrated thought leader who has transformed, one of the India's largest public sector bank, Bank of Baroda, into truly a global brand in just 3 years in his tenure. Earlier, he was also a chairman and managing director of Dena Bank, specifically in 2004, wherein in 1 year, he put the bank into a profitability. So it's a great contribution there. He is known for his bold, visionary, and transformational leadership into the corporate world. Even we talk more about Dr. Anil, Bank of Baroda turnaround story from, a state entity into a global brand is a classic example where he used his intangibles to double the business of the bank in just 3 years and readied the bank in a manner that, can be truly a global brand. And his continuous effort and application of, investment in intangibles to lift up the organization was remarkable. He was also, in the Harvard Business Review articles, and he's also considered as a wise leader and a true HR hero by the Harvard expert. So without taking much time, Dr. Anil, we welcome you on behalf of AMA with the flower. Warm welcome. Thank you. We have Pradip and Khandelwal here. So
This confusion persists.
is a special occasion for me. I'm meeting him after a long time. So Pradip Khandelwal is Khandwalla. Okay, Khandwalla. So Pradip will be good for me. Okay. So Pradip ji is basically educated at Mumbai University BCom and Wharton School University MBA. And he is also a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. His area of specialization is organizational theory. With research, teaching, training, and consulting interest is the area of his interest. And turnaround management, management restructuring, effective management of public enterprises, strategic organization, and individual and management creativity and innovation. He has been a consultant and trainer to a large number of organizations, including Aditya Birla Group, Alembic, BHEL, Bharat Petroleum, CMC, Cadila Pharma, DFID, Grow Talent, Gujarat State Finance Corporation, long list, Hindustan Lever, L&T, Maharashtra State Apex Cooperative Bank, Microsoft, National Thermal Power Corporation, Pfizer, Reliance, Satyam Computers, Cell India, Tata Telecom, my goodness, it's a big telco, etc. So Professor Pradip taught at MCGILL University, Canada for several years before returning to India in 1975. Thereafter, he was professor at Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, until his retirement in 2002. He held the L&T chair in organizational behavior at IIM Ahmedabad from 1985 to 1991. He was the director of IIM Ahmedabad from 1991 to 1996. Professor Pradip has authored over a dozen of professional books and 110 papers and articles in Indian and foreign journals. His book, The Design of Organization, was the international textbook used in nearly 100 management schools around the world. Professor Pradip has won many awards, including the Ford Foundation Doctoral Fellowship US Award, Seagram Research Award Canada, 4 Best Book of the Year Awards, Lifetime Achievement Award in the field of HRD given by the World HRD Congress, and international body active in over 30 countries. Several Indian and international Woos of Woo carry his biography entry. So, sir, big thank you, and on behalf of AMA, would like to welcome with the flower. Professor Biju, he is with IIM Ahmedabad in Human Resource Management. His educational qualification, he is Master in HRM from MG University, Kerala. He is Fellow from NIBM Pune. His academic affiliation, he taught at IIM Lucknow and MDI Goregaon. His professional affiliations has professional experience spanning industry, consulting, leading management schools. He has consulted and conducted training programs for government, public, private, and non-government organization. He served as nominated member in core committee of National HRD Network, Delhi chapter 1998 to 1999. And as a member of the founding governing body of Strategic Management Forum of India. Areas of Professor Biju's research, his areas interest in research are strategic human resource management, performance management, employment relations, web-based HRM, and infrastructure management, and has published articles in national journals as well as presented papers in seminar. Professor Biju, warm welcome on behalf of Ahmedabad Management Association. Would like to greet you with the flower. Sir, warm welcome. So I now request to start the book release formality. So now I request Dr. Pradip to speak his observation on the, sorry, please, yeah. It's about Dr. Anil to speak later.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm first of all grateful to AMA for agreeing to release this book and synchronizing it with TV's one-day seminar on performance management. I'm also grateful to Professor Pradip Khandwalla to be chief guest to release this book. There is a special meaning for me when Pradip agrees to come and release the book. He is the doyen in the field of organizational theory, which transcends HR, IR, and everything. And one of, he's professor's professor, I call him. So it's a great privilege that he's there. And for another reason, that Pradip Khandwalla was on board of Bank of Baroda when he has witnessed the transformation. He has been part of it, and as someone who was a main sutradhar in our HR committee to pilot transformation, so this has a special emotive feeling in me that he's there. Professor TV Rao, of course, has had long association with us, as I was telling in the previous session, and he also has seen Bank of Baroda. I remember their famous study of Vijay Govindarajan, TV Rao, Narayan Sheth in 1982 on management control systems in Bank of Baroda, where extensively they covered the IR at the branch level. If TV you remember at that time. I even remember your mentioning about Raopura branch of Baroda, where you had the manager so scared not coming out and whatnot. And of course, Biju is an old friend and professor at IIMA Ahmedabad. You'll be very happy that currently he is on the board of Bank of Baroda. So all the gentlemen who are sitting here have had something to do with Bank of Baroda. And this has a special meaning for the simple reason that this book is not, in operational and practitioners' word, a theoretical book. This book has something about the nuclear fission in an organization, that something has happened, and those who have witnessed at that time and those who are witnessing its impact, like Biju, they are here. Now, what is this book all about? Throughout my life, I heard that management and its practice, they are two different things. The research is not integrated with practice. And in all management conferences, this is internationally talked about, that research and management practice move on to different axes. As faculty in Bank of Baroda Staff College in early 80s, we were supposed to do some research. And then General Manager Human Resource, one of the leading lights of the banking industry, Mr. Bhede, I can never forget that. He says, once you are expected to do research, why not do on the bank? This will benefit us. It was a rare gesture from a working executive. And gates were opened of top management and corporate headquarters for a researcher. I was in trepidation that how do I go there, meet current chairman, former chairman. So in that sense, this book is about research on CEOs and on their strategies in most sensitive area of industrial relations. Hats off to the professionalism of Bank of Baroda that they permitted me this. Of course, unions alleged that I am a spy planted by management on them through this research. But we had one of the most enlightened union leader, Mr. M. Rajgopal, who spent countless hours with me on this research, and he in fact lined up, he introduced me to former chairmen at the age of 80, 85, that here is one genuine person, would you like to talk to him, this will help the bank. And this is how I met M.G. Parikh, I met several of them, and some of the, I must tell you, culture of this bank. R.C. Shah, who spent so much time, Dr. A.C. Shah, who invited me to his residence for an interview, and when some people came to his residence, it was disturbed. He asked me, where are you staying? I said, sir, I was junior and chairman. I said, sir, Usha Kiran Guest House on Pedder Road. He said, okay, I will give you a call. When I pass through, you join me in the car. And he gave me he gave his interview in the car. So as we were approaching central office, he said, I'll get busy there. He told carwala to take half an hour, some circuitous route here and there, so that he can complete this. Where will you find such professionals? You tell me. This has been the stuff of Bank of Baroda's top management. And today, if Bank of Baroda is taking two banks inside it, it has been a legacy of some of the top professionals in Bank of Baroda. So much so that in 1942, 5 of young officers were identified to go to Barclays Bank in London for training. Eventually, all 5 became chairman of the bank. That has been the legacy of Bank of Baroda. And Mr. Bhede himself told me, why should I not support your research? In 1965, I was sent by NM Choksey for 1 year full-time program on labor welfare to London School of Economics. As if this was not enough, 2 prominent union leaders of Bank of Baroda Officers Association and workmen unions were also deputed to London for labor welfare training. Now, this has been the history of the bank. I thought I will share with you because today HRD and all these things have become a sort of a public relation activity for corporations. Genuine, deeply ingrained into the culture of HRD and specialization of this kind, I witnessed. So I was encouraged to do this despite resistance from some quarters. I was encouraged. And this research, when I entered the field, it was a qualitative research, ethnographical account. I was in the field, and the kind of mind-boggling data that was coming. Sir, you will be happy. You are foremost researcher. That recently in one of the review, Professor Mamkuttam, who retired as Dean FMS Delhi, and he is a genuine IR man, he wrote in a journal that reading this book, I was reminded of William Foote White's research on street corner society. So such is the methodological rigor of this book, he commented. I am not an academician, nor I am a writer. Let me confess to you. I have learnt through the process of, you know, how many times when I was used to draft, I used to get frustrated. But John Kenneth Galbraith once wrote, was a famous economist of US, then Indian ambassador, that I have not produced any book without 7 drafts. So I'll say, okay, this is 5th draft. No, never mind, if Galbraith needed 7th, I need 70 drafts. But anyway, so this book is a product of that research which I undertook in mid-80s on the strategies of top management. And the background was that when I was faculty here, batches after batches of branch managers came here and complained about the culture at the branch level. The unions will not allow them to work. Unions will shout slogans on their face. If you changed a person from savings department to current department, there was agitation. So how can we work? And they were telling me that this is because unions are not stopped by top management and they are in some sort of connivance. When you go to workers, they said their leaders are in connivance with the bank, with the result that leaders are doing managerial function. Everyone, a large group from Bank of Baroda is here today. They can contradict me what times in 80s and 90s they have seen in the bank, where the bank was run by the trade unions. You want to go abroad, you have to reach to the General Secretary of the association. So much so, I can't forget a day, I was not promoted from Chief Manager to AGM. So General Manager HR came to staff colleague, he said, you are very good, but you should keep good relations with the association. And I told him, sir, for the first time, I feel ashamed of working in the bank today, that you have handed over management function to them. I'm happy to be faculty, don't worry about me. Now, coming from that, and the research revealed the chest mastering for good reasons by then CEOs, because they wanted to keep labor militancy out from performance. There were no bad intentions, but to keep labor militancy under control during 80s and 90s, which were so bad, and the agenda of expansion keeping out, somewhere they dithered into and played into the hands of. So that is why the title is Chess Master. Then came liberalization and all that, and we found that for every damn thing you have to reach out to association. You can't go. Because instead of doing their job, what they were doing is, who should be general manager HR of the bank? Who should be posted in Ahmedabad as general manager? Who should do this? And then we took on them, because informality in large organization works up to a level. And the learning is, when we move from informal relation to formal relations, documented relations, there is a turbulence and tension. Rest is a history, how we managed and what happened. Now, the thing that helped us in transformation was the insight, two insights I received in the research, that the worker union connect is fragile, poor. So we took the risk of taking on unions, and as expected, the unions were left in lurch by their own constituencies. This was one research finding. The second research finding was the disconnect between operating managers and the top management. So what we did was improving these connect between operating managers and the top management by way of creating a smart communication culture, listening to them and whatnot. Book contains that. But this is not enough, friends. Handling IR itself is not enough. And therefore, alongside straightening the relation with trade unions, we launched a massive program on human resource development. We were the first bank, and here comes Professor Khandwalla, we were the first bank to document the HR policy of the bank. We have till today in the banking industry, only bank which has a document. I don't know whether the young HR people know about it. There's a document. We were asking a question. If a bank has a deposit policy written, a bank has a credit policy written, a bank has a treasury policy written, how come we don't have a HR policy written? And we created, nobody asked us, no ministry, no regulator asked us to create a committee. We created first human resource committee of the board. And I'm very happy persons like Dr. Khandwalla piloted. We had two outsiders, Arvind Agrawal, if you remember, and Professor B.L. Maheshwari, so that from the industry we can get what's happening. And that laid the foundation of human resource, new human resource management and HRD. Because this cannot come with a man and go away with a man. We wanted to really seamlessly, create a tapestry of human resource management in the bank. And I'm very happy, sir, that normally HR initiatives die with the outgoing chairman. I'm very happy they've continued with successive chairman, CEOs in some form or the other for two good reasons. One, this is the only bank having professional HR guys. So they have continued. And if you have something good, no chairman, in fact, in some cases, they have strengthened it further. Now we have on the board persons like Biju, who comes from this field. I think in that sense, Bank of Baroda has continued with the result. It continues to grow at a level, and I am happy that even State Bank has acknowledged with their, we should say that it's really the classy bank. They have said, as far as HR is concerned, Bank of Baroda is much ahead than us. Finally, about the book, I would say that the gardening part, somebody asked me a question in one of the things, that you have also done lot of chess mastering, unions, this, that. And my answer was, I have done weeding, and weeding is the first step of gardening. So, weeding is also required in organization periodically, and then you plant, soiling, and I thought, in fact, one of my friend, Rajan Gupta, who is a student of persons like Dr. Khandwalla and Dr. TV Rao, he suggested, don't allow this thesis to rest in, somewhere, write about it. I was not confident. The data was very, very sensitive, those who read about it, but 28 years had elapsed. I think it is time. I am happy to share for my mentors and professors that I was keeping my fingers crossed, but the academic world has accepted it quite well. Good reviews have appeared, and I feel in some ways fulfilled that this work is now available for the future generation of HR people, CEOs, and it clearly brings out some key findings of that CEO is the key in designing human resource policy. His one word, we don't need it, is enough to kill it. CEO, whether one agrees or not, designs all parameters, the strategy, the policies, and therefore the CEO book also brings out, as long as CEO had confidence in HR, the HR function flourished. Whenever CEOs had no trust in HR, or they had only overwhelmingly business agenda or their own personal thing, the HR did not. So it's a story of oscillations of industrial relation and HR, and presents a story about the, how CEOs and HR can create transformation through the insights on human resource management. I must acknowledge, I am not a career banker. And in a way, it came as really a blessing in disguise, because I focus most of my attention on human processes. And ultimately, if you focus your attention on human processes and put the ladder right, then you can climb the success path. And I am very happy that finally this book is available. I'm sorry that the publishers could not put a counter here for the book, but nevertheless, the idea is not to do this program for selling a book. The book is available on Amazon. Those serious students of human resource who are, who want to read about it, they can really go to Amazon website. With this, I thank all of you. I thank especially Professor Khandwalla, who agreed to come, and I'm very happy for one reason, that he was one solid force to encourage us, help us, giving ideas. I always know by that time, for him it is very tautological that I say that we learned from his questions. He always asked questions from which we learned. He never said, why don't you do this way? He never sermonized. He asked right questions, and that was learning of the CEO. With this, I thank everyone for coming in this evening function.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. Now I request Mr. Pradip to speak and his observation on the book.
Hello, everything okay? Yeah. It's been a first of all, I want to thank Anil to have me come and release this book. But it was a great honor to be on the Bank of Baroda board when he was ED and then chairman. Anil has a solid and successful exposure to industrial relations as he described today, and especially in West Bengal, where he was East Zone head, where, as we all know, Bengal is great culturally, but not exactly a very amenable place for industrial sort of conduct. And how I read through his chapters on how he was able to deal with his unions and create direct connect with the members, but also co-opted the union heads also into this. He got them involved in developmental of the bank, developmental aspect of the region, because the region was lacking behind the rest of the bank in per unit productivity and so on. So he got them into that, and they got excited because for the first time they were engaged in creative thinking and thinking about options and so on, and that is intrinsically very enjoyable. So he got the managers, the union heads as well as the members involved in this, and gradually he was able to wean them away from obstructionist unionism, and the East Zone, I believe, was turned around under you, right? Did much better at the end of his term. He also had this other experience at staff training college in Ahmedabad, where he was the head and trained whole batches of people. He got in outside faculty to come and talk to them, and I think it must have strengthened his core understanding of human resources management. And it's one thing to read about it, but the other thing to actually, deal with people who are grappling with people problems and then help them overcome them by talking to them, by listening to them, by training them, and so on. So I think it laid the groundwork for his later emergence as a transformational leader in the Bank of Baroda. I have had a very long relationship with Anil. I had the privilege of inviting him to join the faculty of IIMA once he had finished his PhD, I believe, in 1990s.
93.
And 93, right. And luckily, he declined it.
I feel very embarrassed.
Luckily, because I think the experience he garnered later on as a CEO, as a chief executive, has given us this book, which is a very rare kind of book, and which might not have come about had he simply become a faculty member. That is not to undermine my colleagues here who are also academics, but simply to say that the richness of hands-on experience and with an academic background, academic sort of bent, is a wonderful combination. And Anil fortunately has that, and that's why I said it's just as well that he didn't join IIMA as a faculty member. We also had besides the Bank of Baroda Pioneer Asset Management Company, where he was the chairman, I was on the board. Academy of Human Resource Development, where he was the chairman, I was the chairman of the Academic Council, and so on, the number of places where we work together. But these are formal sort of engagements. More importantly, he has also always been a very warm friend with whom I can discuss anything, and we can share everything, and we can talk very freely and discuss we may disagree on points, but there's never anything personal about it. It's always intellectually refreshing to talk to Anil. I want to situate this book. In a larger context. You know, in our country, we are at the cusp of a major transformation. And that requires transformational leadership, not only in the major enterprises of the country, in the public sector, in the private sector, in not-for-profit institutions, health, education, government. In all of these institutions, we need transformational leadership because the tasks before the country are so massive. We don't have the luxury of $50,000 per capita income, where even Trump can be tolerated. I mean, he's a nuisance, but he can't do too much damage. Here it's a question of life and death for millions of people. And it's a question of the survival of this nation, a fragile democracy, which it is fortunately has taken strong roots, but still we are so poor, and we need therefore to build up this country in a very big way, and that's where you need transformational leadership. The leadership is, as usual, is not enough. And I want to situate this book in this larger framework where we need this transformational leadership, and therefore and I was also enthused by when I read accounts of other transformational leaders like Krishnamurti at SAIL, Akio Morita of Sony, and other people, Bennett and Burns and so on, the academicians who had done a lot of research on transformational leadership. And this convinced me that transformational leadership is the way forward for this country in terms of revitalization of the country into a great civilization. I also did some very interesting work on turnaround management, about 165 turnarounds from all over the world. And there one very exciting insight I got based on research is that humane and innovative turnarounds, humane means non-surgical, where people are not fired and plants are not closed, like that, outperforms surgical turnarounds, both in terms of the rate of turnaround and also the magnitude of turnaround. So this was a very important insight, and these innovative and humane turnarounds were precisely engineered by transformational leaders. So that was, all of these kind of came together into a conviction that people like Anil are the kind of people we need in this country to move forward at the level of enterprises and institutions. I would like to kind of say that, if you like, summarize transformational leadership in 5 C's. I'm not really used to this kind of thing, but nonetheless I think it's quite useful. When a CEO or his team, or her team, fuses together 5 C's, first of all, competence, communication with the rank and file and with the other stakeholders, collaboration, building a team. Anil used to have daily meetings, which then created a very powerful team at the top, which was committed to change. So collaboration, communication, competence, creativity, a lot of innovations took place at Bank of Baroda. And finally, compassion. His Sampark idea was Paramarsh, Sampark, Coach, were the ideas that he came up with, innovative ideas, where compassion was what drove Anil forward. So these 5 C's, I think, are, if you like, a recipe, if I may say so, for transformation of any organization, any institution. If you can somehow, obviously the means will differ from case to case, but if you keep in mind these 5 C's, then I think it is possible to design transformation in any system, any organization, anywhere. He has titled this book in a very intriguing way, CEO, Chess Master or Gardener. Now, I was intrigued by that title. His metaphors he has used his metaphors to contrast 2 different styles of management. One is tactical, manipulative, transactional, coercive sometimes, versus one that is transformational in the sense that it mobilizes people, takes them along, gives them a vision of excellence, gives them a mission to strive for. And people collectively come up with changes and innovations. And this I saw very much at Bharat Petroleum Corporation also, under Sundarajan, as much as at Bank of Baroda. Both these places I saw that once you unleash the energies of the people, once you get them excited about a common destiny, the sky's the limit. And I think that's what is so important about this book, that he has been able to talk about. That is not to say that he has not played the chess master role too. And I think you need both. A CEO cannot be just a gardener. Of course he has to be a gardener, he has to tend people and so on. But he has also to be a strategist. He has to, you have to marshal all the forces of the enterprise or the institution to move forward. And in your case, not only people, but automation, computerization, opening branches overseas were also part of financial discipline, was also part of the whole transformational agenda. So, reining the unions, getting them committed to this change. And so it is both. The CEO has to be both a chess master as well, I think, a gardener. When I joined the board of Bank of Baroda, I saw a fair amount of apathy. I hope I'm being fair. But there was a fair amount of apathy. The board was a little discouraged because things were not moving forward. It looked like a very how shall I say, I shouldn't really be saying anything because, Shinoy was a very competent person, but he was in his own way, somewhat restricted in his larger vision. So, kind of things were going on and we were waiting for breakthroughs and changes, and competition was coming, and, other private sector banks were becoming strong. And we were not seeing that kind of level of initiative that we wanted. And so that bank was a great bank, great history, but it was apathetic. It was losing ground in terms of market share, position, ranking. Senior managers seemed to lack initiative. Not that they lacked initiative, but they were not charged up to show initiative. The industrial relations were not very nice. Both the HR and IR functions were kind of backburners, not centrally important. And the basic focus was on meeting numbers, financial advances, credit, and so on and so forth, deposits and so forth. When I left the board, the situation was reversed. There was renewal, new energy, enthusiasm, lots of initiatives and innovations, lot of empowerment, and much improved financial performance. Online banking was introduced in 1,700 branches. It's quite a lot of branches. Anil has summarized well some of his key learnings in the effective transformation of a large institution like Bank of Baroda in box 12.2 of his book on pages 301 to 302. And I'll just very briefly summarize them. Culture change or mindset change is a prerequisite for transformation. The leader must foster learning at all levels for long-term excellence. The CEO must create a team of zealots to push forward the transformational agenda. The CEO must seek a direct connect with the rank and file. The CEO must encourage widespread discussions of the change agenda and listen to people through town hall meetings, for example. Innovations, risk-taking, and excellence are the outcomes of teamwork and not that of a single individual. The individual empowers, but then it's a matter of the collective to take forward this innovations, risk-taking, and excellence. The CEO must drive the HRD effort, even though there are HRD managers may be there, but really the CEO must be an excellent people manager. There must be demonstrated compassion in management. The CEO must handhold subordinates as they grapple with the challenges of change. Leadership is co-leading. All the stakeholders, including external stakeholders, must be brought on board for the change effort. In his case, we had to build bridges with government. Luckily, we had Vinod Rai was on the board, and Vinod was very supportive, and he helped Bank of Baroda very well. If I may share this secret, I was on the appointments committee to select CMDs and executive directors of the financial institutions, banks and public sector, banks and financial institutions. And there was resistance to your being made CMD.
Yeah.
And it was Vinod and I said, what are you talking? I mean, here is the ideal person. Just because he's not a professional banker doesn't mean that he can't be a CEO. And he somehow pushed this through. And luckily for Bank of Baroda, he became the CMD. Under Anil's leadership and with the enthusiastic support of the staff and board, BOB was able to double total business, credit and profits in just 3 years. That's 25% growth per annum compounded, right? The transformation has been written up in case studies, and Anil has received a number of awards for this transformation effort. I want to compliment Anil for writing a scholarly and insightful, but also a highly readable book, and wish it the best for becoming a management bestseller. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we have two options. Option number one, we had planned a discussion, but I think given the time constraint that I am told by IIMA, it would be a good idea if TV and Biju also speak for 10 minutes each, that may be a better thing because they have some constraint in terms of time. So may I request TV first to, or Biju, anybody? Biju, you would like to? Yeah. Okay, yeah. It turned out to be, he was one of the OUP sent to two blind reviewers. He was one of them.
First of all, Anil, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who says you are not academic or other? Who can think of better title than CEO, chess master or gardener or dare to lead? Long way, I think Anil has written several years ago, almost about 30 years ago, HRD for banks.
Yeah.
That is the only book I can remember
86.
available for HRD for banks. So you can't say that you are not an author, you are not academic.
Well,
I think we also learned from you, and thanks a lot. Since there is, I think by some misfortune, since there is no sale of this book, I like to read out some parts which I think are very interesting. Some of the comments, because now normally when people make comments, they would have read the book, at least some of the chapters, and make comments. Dave Ulrich writes, a wonderful narrative from a truly exceptional CEO. I think it's a very interesting kind of a comment. Dave Ulrich is quite a known HR person from University of Michigan. Y. V. Reddy writes, Dr. Anil Khandelwal's book reflects his temperament and, more important, his background as a trainer, a teacher, an executive, a chief executive of a bank, a thinker, and finally a writer. It is of extraordinary value because it contains the distilled wisdom narrated through personal experience and episodes without losing sight of theory and the big picture. Describes remarkable journey of our finance from static control systems to pervasive confusion and finally to consolidation into a modern bank. I think that's a big compliment for you. The book is both a record of institutional history and an evaluation of financial sector in general and banking in particular. I have no doubt that this book is of great value not only for HR professionals. This is, I think, very important. It's not only for HR professionals but also for practitioners of management and academics. When Anil was remembering an incident I narrated, I clean forgot about it. Thank you for reminding me that. Since the ex-CMD of Bank of Baroda himself mentioned the event, I cannot but narrate that little event which fits in well with the title by substituting CEO with a branch manager and that of a regional manager. I think this applies also to branch level, a regional level and a zonal level. This was the time when Professor Narayan Sheth, Govindarajan and I were doing a study of the Bank of Baroda. It was restructuring of Bank of Baroda, and we were interviewing a large number of people from across the country, and we wanted to visit some of the branches in Baroda. We wanted to visit one branch, and we were all traveling by train. You know, the Gujarat Express reaches by about 9 o'clock Baroda. So as soon as we reached there, we got a message. The branch manager prefers to meet you not in his branch but in the guest house. So the car will take you to the guest house and be there at the guest house. So we went to the guest house and we were waiting for him, and after some time we find a gentleman coming on his two-wheeler with a bandaged hand.
He was
and coming and then saying, sir, I can't even shake my hand with you because I've broken my hand. And the moment I saw him, I felt that, look, I think somebody seems to have beaten him up because I understand there are IR issues in the branch. And so the gentleman says that he can't, and he said, this is the best introduction I can give to you, my branch. And the moment he said that, so we later came to know, he told that in my branch, I think there are unions, there are more than 2 unions. Every fellow comes late. If I allow one fellow to come late, next fellow will come another half an hour late and say, you allowed him half an hour late, now I have come another half an hour late. So how does it matter? It goes on all the time. People are fighting, and my life has become miserable in this branch. And this is how the unions are in the bank. So it's terrible, sir. That is why I wanted to meet you here, because in the branch if you come, but we had to go to the branch. And when we went there in the branch, we literally saw customers fighting with the staff and staff members coming and trying, why are you here? have you been sent by the top management to inquire into the branch and things like that. So we saw the real industrial relations issue. And a few months later, I went to BOB college and then was talking to I think Bide was there at the time I mentioned to him that, look, I understand that you have IR problems. This is what I came to know without mentioning the name of the branch. So immediately he said, you are talking of that branch. I said, how did you know? He said, no, you go now and see the branch. I said, what magic did you do? Because most people, the complaint was that all the staff, clerical staff there are permanent employees. They don't want to leave. No job rotation is possible. So they are all, the branch manager's solution was to change all the staff. Then the branch will be wonderful. So how could you change so many staff? So he said, no sir, we didn't change any of the other staff. We changed the branch manager. So I think the leader makes a difference. Leader is a chess master or a gardener. I think that is what is the lesson. Around the same time, we had the Bank of Baroda, I think about a few months later, there was a big strike. I think you mentioned about that strike, and I think there was quite chaotic. There was one particular regional manager from Surat, whom we happened to meet. He said that, look, Professor Rao, all my staff go to this particular region. All my staff were solidly with the union. They went on strike during the daytime and did their work in the night time. That is a very interesting kind of comment that they have made to say, we are loyal to the bank, we don't want the work to suffer. This is because of the regional manager, their allegiance to the... That means you can be a great leader even if things in IR situation are not so good and so on. I think these are two insights I remember from 82, but when you read the book, you discover it's not. These are just two samples of a top-level manager being a gardener or a nurturing kind of a person. But this book is filled with so many wonderful kind of insights at every point of time. I think 50 years, more than 50 years of the dynamics reflected in a very effective kind of a way. And I would just like to mention a few things about the transformation part of it. In fact, I think this particular book is meant for not only for IR or HR people, but every branch manager. I wish every banker, every branch manager, every manager, not only branch manager, reads this, not because of any IR or HR, but because of the philosophy of effective leadership it promotes. In the last chapter, I just want to read out a few things, and then I will stop here and pass it on to Biju to talk about it. What gardener leaders need to do or need to do. I think he talked of, I think he already mentioned, Anil mentioned about weeding and seeding and so on, but I think for if you want to be a gardener, need to be clear about the priorities and redefine the role and behavior to transcend from overwhelmingly business mindset to people and organization mindset. I think we are quite often driven by targets and tasks and forget the human beings and so on. So I think this is one thing. Constantly work on structure, systems, process and people to create an enabling culture for work and help individuals to give their best and rise to their full potential. Act as a live-in coach on the job to next generation leaders, making their knowledge, experience and wisdom available to them. These are just a sample, beautiful illustrations given. But there is an appendix which summarizes, I think, the entire thing, which is about the entire transformation exercise, the intangibles. What is it that was focused in the book, a good part of the book, on intangibles? Compelling vision, employee-centric initiatives, customer-centric initiatives, communication culture, leadership pipeline, speed, leveraging technology, building human resources, leadership excellence, ethics and governance, and finally, not to leave out, branding. I'm sure most of you know how I think Anil, during his tenure, built the brand, not only the employer, BOB branding, but branding of every employee by developing a sense of pride and so on. I think many of these things are written there. I think it's very rarely we get to read with such great insight from a practitioner academician mindset. So I think this is a very valuable addition to the Indian leadership on Indian leadership literature. Thank you, Anil, for giving this wonderful kind of a gift to the both the management field and to HR professionals. Thank you. And now I pass on to Biju to make your comments.
I was telling him he was the reviewer of the book. OUP sent.
I feel humbled because I am in the company of giants. The first name in the acknowledgement is Rajan Gupta, who is like a guru to me, and then who is also like a good friend of Anil. And Rajan actually considers both Pradip and TV as his guru. So it's like a food chain down the line. Okay, it's great to actually work with it. I would like to look at it from, actually 3 perspectives. Okay, the first 2 I would rush through because much have been talked about the book and the work which he has done. And the third, currently since I sit on the board of Bank of Director Baroda as an independent director, and also I chair the strategic HR committee, I get to see what Anil has left. Leaders, Gardner leaders leave organizations which still work, and which has given a lot of confidence to the system, because one of it, other than the stock market performance, I'm very poor in understanding how the stock market operates, and also I don't have money to invest. But more than that, when I look into it, look at the recent experiments which has happened here. It gave the confidence to the government and associate to look into it. When the bifurcation of the bank's organization structure, the role, the governance reforms, bifurcating the role of the chairperson and the MD came, Bank of Baroda was the first choice. So it actually become, like an experimental baccarat. But what happens is that it also gives the confidence that you can give it to a bank. When the merger was being talked about, okay, the government's first experiment with the merger, that to a 3-way merger, possibly one of the unique experiments in the world, which you're bringing 3 banks with distinct culture, distinct operating policies, distinct cultural differences, product differences, everything together. And it's actually the decision was of to bring Bank of Baroda. Of course, SBI merged, but then you had a same technology platform which takes out 50% of the problems away. But here you have a system to handle. And if you look at it, Bank of Baroda, as of now, yes, we have taken losses. Okay, the first board meeting which I had attended was actually to declare losses after term. We have taken huge provisions. We have cleaned up balance sheets. Okay, but in the short is that the foundations which Gardner leaders are led in this bank has possibly helped this bank to come stronger. And the latest thing in Inspired, when the results were declared, we have a WhatsApp group of directors where, Jay Kumar had sent a message by telling us that the analyst reports are actually positive, which fundamentally says that possibly the shares are not getting beaten up as expectations, because the analysts also actually believe that this will come out as extremely stronger. And thanks, Anil, for leaving a strong bank. And that's the proof of the pudding. Now, about the book, that's the first thing to look into it. As I was introduced to the work of Anil by Rajan, who when I was in MDI as a faculty, when Rajan used to handle courses for the doctoral students, and then I used to tag along. Okay, we used to talk about, his, Anil's work as a wonderful example of autoethnography. Okay, because this methodology is not, look, longitudinal studies are rare. Okay, longitudinal quantitative studies are difficult but still acceptable. Longitudinal qualitative studies, which relies on observational and historical archival data, is actually a mammoth thing. So you are typically what you're talking about, the same thing which I remember is that when Richard Attenborough was given Oscar, one of the comments of the critic review is that it's like compressing, 60, 70 years of history into 2.5 hours. So what he has done is compressing, again, the same amount of history of a large institution. That too, it's not very easy because it's a very, very complex institution into 300 plus pages. Who says you are not an academic or a writer? Okay, it requires a lot of, in terms of that beauty of that longitudinal methods by which the argument flows and how it is actually distilled, bringing into thematic solutions of choices. And that's where I like, and he emphatically says that yes, as leaders, you leave greater sustainable institutions with Gardner type of leadership, and this is a living proof. And that too, when an era where employment relations, institutional building is becoming out of fashion and you really don't have work coming out, this stands as a very, very interesting work. Okay, that's what I find about the book. But then let me quickly move into what's happening now. Okay, as you know, there's a lot happening in the area of HR. Before that, with your permission of the board, I would also like to introduce, because the people who are carrying forward, okay, I only sit in in the strategic HR committee, chair it and eat cashew nuts. Okay, but the real people who cannot are here. I think we should clap for them. Kamlesh ji, he recently retired from there as general manager HR. We still miss you because he was there. So why don't you people stand up? Let them see you, because these are the people who actually. Hey, Swapna, come on. These are the people who actually carry the flags forward. Okay. Who build on it, and let me talk about some of those things. While the business, it's a second round of transformation for Bank of Baroda, which is called the Project Navodaya, okay, which possibly runs close to 75 different projects handling simultaneously, because we also have not only transforming the bank nationally, but also internationally and digitally. The whole platform is going to get upside down. Okay, that's the challenge in which the bank is taken. Quite a few challenges because of historical reasons. There was a talent gap. Okay, the bank has worked on, which was a difficult task, which Swapna knows. We had worked on lateral entry, bringing in lateral entry talent into it. Okay, either through different routes, including strengthening the subsidiaries. And the biggest initiative ever possibly taken in the history of banking industry, and maybe in many organizational industry, is the We Lead programs, a series of 4-level or 4-tier programs, which talks about a very senior level program for grooming future CEOs, not for Bank of Baroda, it's for the industry. Okay, incidentally, one of them might become a Bank of Baroda leader, but then we want to create leaders for the industry, followed by the middle level 2 layers, and around 2,000 young people who have spent 3 to 5 years in the organizations goes through accelerated learning of 9 months each, which uses the power of digital technology. So through this process, close to 3,000 leaders are being identified and groomed every year. And the second phase, I understand, is going to roll on, and we would like to actually carry it on so that the pool, the depth of the talent pool in the organization goes down. And one of the things is that what is interestingly is coming is the number of women coming up at the top level. We have only possibly Swapna and 1 or 2, but at the lower 2 levels, the number of women leaders who are coming up, getting ready to take those responsibilities, taking on branch management, or as I call it, P&L responsibilities, is going. And we would wish to look into it. And the whole HR function itself has gone. We followed the footstep of what Anil has said to continue with introducing, hiring specialized HR talent. And many of the specialized HR talent who have come have also moved to line responsibilities for fixed terms, so that they would also get empathy about what business is. They would learn how to run the businesses, come back and can become real HR business partners. There is a whole effort on creating a learning organization which Kamlesh ji had pioneered. And one of the examples which I suddenly cracked about it, he came up with a very interesting company, which I am sure I see my son doing. Look, everywhere he goes, I think his mother and his grandmothers have a problem. He goes with two things stuck into this thing. And we never find him reading anything. But then he seems to be aware about a lot of things. He knew what is happening to Flipkart versus Amazon much before I knew. Okay, so then I suddenly found is that he listens. And the whole inventive of trying to make the young people, because we are also a young band, listen through Baroda radio. Okay, which actually, it's not music, it's also fun, it's entertainment, but it's also talking about snippets of banking wisdom. Okay, communicated to them is something, and I understand that the number of listeners to that radio is really going up. So what I've heard is that you create a system which possibly the user finds it useful. That's a fundamental marketing 101. I'm sure the users will automatically use it. And that's some of the very interesting initiatives which are happening. There are a lot of HR systems which are industry standard HR systems like, the new PMS system, which actually aggregates data from different places and try to put up roles, role-specific, performance targets, which is again one of the kind of, first of the type in maybe in the banking industry, which is being experimented, and trying to get it smoothened. And last one of it is that whatever have been done over a period of so many years, coming up with a core value clarification to identify and put it formalizing. And some of those learnings which Anil has put in the book, we are actually capitalizing it. I was looking at Exhibit 1, which Professor Rao had read. We are also just building upon that. So it's thanks for the foundations. That is what we are looking at. And we are hopeful, maybe I will roll out from the board very soon, but then I am hoping to really find that in the days to come. And to example, for consecutively 2 years, this is the only public sector bank which has been featured about one of the top 50 learning organizations. And I believe that once, even without consciously trying to look at or playing on matrices to become a great place to work, it will truly become a great place to work and a performing bank. And thanks once again for the wonderful book, and also more importantly, the wonderful foundations people, gardener CEOs like you have led in this large organization. I understand it's like shaking an elephant, because that's a large organization. Thank you.
We can close now. Any questions? One or two questions? Any questions? Any questions? Please. Too late to ask? There is one question. Yeah, sure. Yes, please. Oh, mic. Or you can come here. Come here. Come here. Can you give your introduction, please?
Okay, myself Rahul Shah, and I am a professor. My question is, which is the main factor found in CEO? Which factor found in CEO?
Main factor.
Can you repeat what is?
What is the main factor found in CEO?
Okay, in a successful CEO, I think to me personally, I found that CEOs, I think amongst many things that he does, he will continue to do, is to continuously build the culture of the organization. The culture, the communication culture, the people building culture, unfolding potential culture on the softer side, and also result-oriented culture. All these things finally must result in, and our experience, Bank of Baroda's story suggests, believe me one thing, that First 2 years, I did not even think of any result. And suddenly, every year I was surprised that business is growing. This is a fact, trust me. Because I was very clear that if bank does not perform, nobody will blame me, given my background, that I am not a career banker, one. And second, that bank was really not doing well at that time, so I can at the most do something. But I was surprised year after year. To give you an example, when Professor Khandwalla described something that he wasn't happy when he came, the credit growth was 2%. You remember, sir? Industry credit growth was 25%. And I said, what is wrong with credit? Why it is not happening? I only looked from a process angle. The process angle was that the number of layers a credit proposal goes through. And we did only one intervention. That if the proposal has to come to corporate office, it need not go to regional office, branch office, zonal office. 3 layers cut. It comes directly to corporate office, if to the place where it is to be sanctioned. And then we also did lot of things to put the ladder right, as I say. Our credit growth first year was 41%, so much so that Reserve Bank was worried. They sent 2 inspectors whether everything is all right, why there is sudden spurt in credit growth. And everything fine. We put just the right person in credit. We removed the person who was very shaky in taking decisions. He was senior most in the bank. There was some tradition in the bank that the senior most general manager will take credit function. We removed that and we put a junior chap. He was amazing. And today is such an industry reputation in credit. So, the whole thing is people, process, purpose, structure, strategy. So, on these dimensions if you work, and the performance was really, it just came. So, I think most important thing is building a culture. That's what I would like to respond to your question. Yes, please.
Dr. Khandelwal, you must have played these roles when you were chairman. So, which role did you enjoy? The chess master role or the gardener role? What was fascinating for you?
See, I will tell you, as Professor Khandwalla said, that it's, when you write a book, you have to, you have to put it this way. But it is not either or. Okay, either you are a chess master, which is your overwhelming orientation. If your overwhelming orientation is chess mastering, win, lose, coercion, those kind of things, then there is one kind of output. But to say that gardeners are never chess master, it would be very difficult. That ideal gardener is yet to be born. But I think it's a combination. It is context specific. All leadership is context specific. In fact, those who are fixated only on gardener's role can rarely produce results. Who are fixated, because they would never be able to admonish people, they would never be able to take action where it is required. So you have to have a combination. But don't ask me what percentage of this and what percentage of that. It is contextual. Yeah, sure. What is? Tip. Oh, well, that is a very dangerous game to give tips to people. I tell you, only doctors write prescriptions. So, आपको ऐसा है, read the book, and I think it was my reviewer's suggestion, incidentally, who is sitting here, when the book was sent to him, that behind, in the last of each chapter, please give learnings, major learnings. And that resulted into I have given what Professor Khandwalla also spoke, 10, 12 learning after each chapter. I could not take a second suggestion that give tips to branch managers and others. I said this book is focused on CEO, so that part was not taken, and my editors in Oxford University Press also agreed with this. But essentially the credit for this goes to the reviewer. Now I can reveal Dr. TV Rao. So one of the reviewer was TV Rao. I'm happy to share the book was sent to 2 reviewers in India and 1 professor in Oxford University. And unless they approve, because the publisher Oxford University Press, it goes to. So I was very happy, although I was keeping my fingers crossed from Indian reviewers, because I always thought I am not an academic, and it does not have that flavor. So, but tip is nothing. Each one has to be self-aware to be effective, and it will be very speculative to give tips, I tell you. Yes, please.
Sir, the landscape of the industry is changing, and from a people-centric, it is becoming more customer-centric, and it's more oriented towards addressing how better you can address the sales. So, what I feel is the relevance of the HR vis-a-vis the relevance of the the sales line within the organization. How is the HR relevant nowadays? Because right from hiring to performance management, to taking a role, selecting a people within the organization or outside the organization, to probably giving a pink slip. So I feel that the relevance of HR is diminishing day by day. So what's your personal views on the same, sir?
I will say that HR relevance is much more today. While the traditional aspects of HR may be dying, the traditional modes of recruitment, hiring, but I tell you, even in the modern corporations, highly tech-driven corporation, what is number one problem you ask CEOs? In fact, the KPMG and Deloitte studies suggest, global studies, that CEOs' greatest challenge currently is talent. Now, if you consider talent as part of HR job, then you can imagine that the HR is relevant, but maybe that it is not that performance management, some appraisal formats or those kind of clerical activity or administrative activity of HR are dying, but I think strategic role of HR is getting much more critical today. Yes.
Marketing and HR are not contradictory. They are synergistic. If you got strong HR, your salespeople will be better, more competent, better trained. Your marketing people will be better trained, more competent, more motivated. So it is not as if HR is only concerned with operating people and in a mechanical, routine sort of fashion. Everybody in the organization, including finance people, R&D people, operations people, and marketing people, sales people, everybody has to be groomed, trained, selected, promoted, rotated, etc., by HR. So I don't see how, as you said, the importance of HR is even more if you want to have a strong marketing organization.
We can close now. I think we have overstayed. KK, please excuse us. We have overstayed, but we are closing now. Okay, KK.
So I think thank you, Dr. Pradip, Dr. Anil, Dr. Biju, and Dr. TV Rao for an insightful discussion on the book. My thank you not to all of you for attending this book function. Thank you so much. We had a good time today. Thank you.